Chapter 18 of the White Company. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Clive Catterall. The White Company by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Chapter 18. How Sir Nigel Loring put a patch upon his eye.
It was on the morning of Friday, the 28th day of November, 2 days before the feast of St. Andrew, that the cog and her 2 prisoners, after a weary tacking up the Gironde and the Garonne, dropped anchor at last in front of the noble city of Bordeaux. With wonder and admiration, Alleyne, leaning over the bulwarks, gazed at the forest of masts, the swarm of boats darting hither and thither on the bosom of the broad curving stream, and the grey crescent-shaped city, which stretched with many a tower and minaret along the western shore. Never had he in his quiet life seen so great a town, nor was there in the whole of England, save London alone, one which might match it in size or in wealth. Here came the merchandise of all the fair countries which are watered by the Garonne and the Dordogne, the cloths of the south, the skins of Guyenne, the wines of the Medoc, to be borne away to Hull, Exeter, Dartmouth, Bristol, or Chester, in exchange for the wools and woolfells of England. Here too dwelt those famous smelters and welders, who had made the Bordeaux steel the most trusty upon earth, and could give a temper to lance or sword which might mean dear life to its owner. Alleyne could see the smoke of their forges reeking up in the clear morning air. The storm had died down now to a gentle breeze, which wafted to his ears the long drawn stirring bugle calls which sounded from the ancient ramparts.
"Hola, mon petit,"
said Aylward, coming up to where he stood.
"Thou art a squire now, and like enough to win the golden spurs. Well, I am still a master bowman, and master bowman I shall bide. I dare scarce wag my tongue so freely with you as when we tramped together past Wilverley Chase, else I might be your guide, for indeed I know every house in Bordeaux as a friar knows the beads of his rosary."
"Nay, Aylward," said Alleyne, laying his hand upon the sleeve of his companion's frayed jerkin, "you cannot think me so thrall as to throw aside an old friend because I have had some small share of good fortune. I take it unkind that you should have thought such evil of me."
"Nay, mon gar, 'twas but a flight shot to see if the wind blew steady, though I were a rogue to doubt it."
"Why, had I not met you, Aylward, at the Lyndhurst inn, who can say where I had now been? Certes, I had not gone to Twynham Castle, nor become squire to Sir Nigel, nor met—" He paused abruptly and flushed to his hair, but the bowman was too busy with his own thoughts to notice his young companion's embarrassment.
"It was a good hostel, that of the Pied Merlin," he remarked. "By my 10 finger bones, when I hang bow on nail and change my brigandine for a tunic, I might do worse than take over the dame and her business."
"I thought," said Alleyne, "that you were betrothed to some one at Christchurch."
"To 3," Aylward answered moodily. "To 3. I fear I may not go back to Christchurch. I might chance to see hotter service in Hampshire than I have ever done in Gascony. But mark you now yonder lofty turret in the centre, which stands back from the river and hath a broad banner on the summit. See, the rising sun flashes full upon it and sparkles on the golden lions. 'Tis the royal banner of England, crossed by the prince's label. There he dwells in the Abbey of St. Andrew, where he hath kept his court these years back. Beside it is the minster of the same saint, who hath the town under his very special care."
"And how of yon grey turret on the left?"
"'Tis the fane of St. Michael, as that on the right is of St. Remy. There too, above the poop of yonder nef, you see the tower of Saint Croix and of Pays Berlon. Mark also the mighty ramparts, which are pierced by 3 water gates and 16 others to the landward side."
"And how is it, good Aylward, that there comes so much music from the town? I seem to hear 100 trumpets all calling in chorus."
"It would be strange else, seeing that all the great lords of England and of Gascony are within the walls, and each would have his trumpeter blow as loud as his neighbor, lest it might be thought that his dignity had been abated. Ma foi, they make as much louster as a Scotch army, where every man fills himself with griddle cakes and sits up all night to blow upon his tootle pipe." See all along the banks how the pages water the horses, and there beyond the town how they gallop them over the plain. For every horse you see, a belted knight hath herbergage in the town. For, as I learn, the men at arms and archers have already gone forward to Dax."
"I trust, Aylward," said Sir Nigel, coming up on deck, "that the men are ready for the land. Go tell them that the boats will be for them within the hour." The archer raised his hand in salute and hastened forward. In the meantime Sir Oliver had followed his brother knight, and the two paced the poop together. Sir Nigel in his plum coloured velvet suit, with flat cap of the same, adorned in front with a Lady Loring's glove, and girt round with a curling ostrich feather. The lusty knight, on the other hand, was clad in the very latest mode, with cote hardie, doublet, pourpoint, court pie, and paltock of olive green, picked out with pink and jagged at the edges. A red chaperon or cap, with long hanging cornet, sat daintily on the back of his black curled head, while his gold hued shoes were twisted up à la poulaine, as though the toes were shooting forth a tendril which might hope in time to entwine itself around his massive leg. "Once more, Sir Oliver," said Sir Nigel, looking shorewards with sparkling eyes, "do we find ourselves at the gate of honor, the door which hath so often led us to all that is knightly and worthy. There flies the prince's banner, and it would be well that we haste ashore and pay obeisance to him. The boats already swarm from the bank."
"There is a goodly hostel near the west gate which is famed for the stewing of spiced pullets," remarked Sir Oliver. "We might take the edge off our hunger ere we seek the prince, for though his tables are gay with damask and silver, he is no trencherman himself, and hath no sympathy for those who are his betters." "His betters? His betters before the trencher, lad. Sniff not treason where none is meant. I have seen him smile in his quiet way because I looked for the fourth time towards the carving squire. And indeed, to watch him dallying with a little gobbet of bread, or sipping his cup of thrice watered wine, is enough to make a man feel shame at his own hunger. Yet war and glory, my good friend, though well enough in their way, will not serve to tighten such a belt as clasps my waist."
"How read you that coat which hangs over yonder galley, Alleyne?" asked Sir Nigel.
"Argent, a bend vert between cotises d'Ancet Jules."
"It's a northern coat. I've seen it in the train of the Percies. From the shields there is not one of these vessels which hath not knight or baron aboard. I would mine eyes were better. How read you this upon the left?"
"Argent and azure, a barry wavy of 6.
Ha! It's the sign of the Wiltshire Stourtons. And there beyond I see the red and silver of the Worsleys of Apuldercombe, who, like myself, are of Hampshire lineage. Close behind us is the mulling cross of the gallant William Molyneux, and beside it the bloody chevrons of the Norfolk Woodhouses, with the amulets of the Musgraves of Westmoreland. By St. Paul, it would be a very strange thing if so noble a company were to gather without some notable deed of arms arising from it. And here is our boat, Sir Oliver, so it seems best to me that we should go to the abbey with our squires, leaving Master Hawtayne to have his own way with the unloading." The horses, both of knights and squires, were speedily lowered into a broad lighter, and reached the shore almost as soon as their masters. Sir Nigel bent his knee devoutly as he put foot on land, and taking a small patch from his bosom, he bound it tightly over his left eye. "May the blessed George and the memory of my sweet lady love raise high my heart," quoth he. "And as a token I vow that I will not take this patch from my eye until I have seen something of this country of Spain, and done such a small deed as it lies in me to do. And this I swear upon the cross of my sword and upon the glove of my lady."
"In truth, you take me back 20 years, Nigel," quoth Sir Oliver, as they mounted and rode slowly through the water gate.
"After Cadsand I deemed that the French
thought that we were an army of the blind, for there was scarce a man who had not closed an eye for the greater love and honor of his lady.
Yet it goes hard with you that you should darken one side, when with both open you can scarce tell a horse from a mule.
In truth, friend, I think that you step over the line of reason in this matter."
"Sir Oliver Buttesthorn," said the little knight shortly, "I would have you to understand that blind as I am, I can yet see the path of honor very clearly, and that is the road upon which I do not crave another man's guidance." "By my soul," said Sir Oliver, "you are as tart as verjuice this morning. If you are bent upon a quarrel with me, then I must leave you to your humor, and drop into the Tete door here, for I marked a varlet pass the door who bore a smoking dish which had, methought, a most excellent smell." "Nenny, Nenny," cried his comrade, laying his hand upon his knee, "we have known each other over long to fall out, Oliver, like two raw pages at their first épreuve. You must come with me first to the prince, and then back to the hostel, though sure I am that it would grieve his heart that any gentle cavalier should turn from his board to a common tavern. But is that not my Lord Delewar who waves to us?"
"Ah, my fair lord, God and our Lady be with you."
"Oh, and there's Sir Robert Cheney. Good morrow, Robert. I am right glad to see you." The two knights walked their horses abreast, while Alleyne and Ford, with John Norbury, who was squire to Sir Oliver, kept some paces behind them, a spear's length in front of Black Simon and of the Winchester guidon bearer. Norbury, a lean, silent man, had been to those parts before, and sat his horse with a rigid neck. But the two young squires gazed eagerly to right or left, and plucked each other's sleeves to call attention to the many strange things on every side of them. "See to the brave stalls!" cried Alleyne. "See to the noble armor set forth, and the costly taffeta. And oh, Ford, see to where the scrivener sits with his pigments and the inkhorns, and the rolls of sheepskin as white as the Beaulieu napery. Saw man ever the like before?" "Nay, man, there are finer stalls in Cheapside," answered Ford, whose father had taken him to London on occasion of one of the Smithfield joustings. "I have seen a silversmith's booth there which would serve to buy either side of the street. But mark these houses, Alleyne, how they thrust forth upon the top. And see to the coats of arms at every window, and banner or pencil in the roof." "And the churches!" cried Alleyne. "The priory at Christchurch was a noble pile, but it was cold and bare, methinks, by one of these, with their frettings and their carvings and their traceries, as though some great ivy plant of stone had curled and wantoned over the walls." "And hark to the speech of the folk!" said Ford. "Was ever such a hissing and clacking? I wonder that they have not wit to learn English, now that they have come under the English crown. By Richard of Hampole, there are fair faces among them. See the wench with the brown wimple. Out on you, Alleyne, that you would rather gaze upon dead stone than on living flesh." It was little wonder that the richness and ornament, not only of the church and of stall, but of every private house as well, should have impressed itself upon the young squires. The town was now at the height of its fortunes. Beside its trade and its armorers, other causes had combined to pour wealth into it. War, which had wrought evil upon so many fair cities around, had brought naught but good to this one. As her French sisters decayed, she increased. For here, from north and from east and from south, came the plunder to be sold and the ransom money to be spent. Through all her 16 landward gates there had set for many years a double tide of empty-handed soldiers hurrying frontwards, and of enriched and laden bands who brought their spoils home. The prince's court, too, with its swarms of noble barons and wealthy knights, many of whom, in imitation of their master, had brought their ladies and their children from England, all helped to swell the coffers of the burghers. Now, with this fresh influx of noblemen and cavaliers, food and lodging were scarce to be had, and the prince was hurrying forward his forces to Dax in Gascony to relieve the overcrowding of his capital. In front of the minster and abbey of St. Andrew's was a large square crowded with priests, soldiers, women, friars, and burghers, who made it their common centre for sightseeing and gossip. Amid the knot of noisy and gesticulating townsfolk, many small parties of mounted knights and squires threaded their way towards the prince's quarters, where the huge iron clamped doors were thrown back to show that he held audience within. 20 archers stood about the gateway, and beat back from time to time with their bow staves the inquisitive and chattering crowd who swarmed round the portal. 2 knights in full armor, with lances raised and closed visors, sat their horses on either side, while in the centre with two pages to tend upon him, there stood a noble-faced man in flowing purple gown, who pricked off upon a sheet of parchment the style and title of each applicant, marshalling them in their due order, and giving to each the place and facility which his rank demanded. His long white beard and searching eye imparted to him an air of masterful dignity, which was increased by his tabard-like vesture and the heraldic barret cap with triple plume which bespoke his office. "It is Sir William de Pakington, the prince's own herald and scrivener," whispered Sir Nigel, as he pulled up amid the line of knights who waited admission. "Ill fares it with the man who would venture to deceive him. He hath by rote the name of every knight of France or of England, and all the tree of his family, with his kinships, coat armor, marriages, augmentations, abatements, and I know not what besides. We may leave our horses here with the varlets, and push forward with our squires." Following Sir Nigel's counsel, they pressed on upon foot until they were close to the prince's secretary, who was in high debate with a young and foppish knight who was bent upon making his way past him. "Mackworth," said the king at arms, "it is in my mind, young sir, that you have not been presented before." "Nay, it is but a day since I set foot in Bordeaux, but I feared lest the prince should think it strange that I had not waited upon him." "The prince hath other things to think upon," quoth Sir William de Pakington. "But if you be a Mackworth, you must be a Mackworth of Normanton, and indeed I see now that your coat is sable and ermine." "I am a Mackworth of Normanton," the other answered, with some uneasiness of manner. "Then you must be Sir Stephen Mackworth, for I learn that when old Sir Guy died he came in for the arms and the name, the war cry and the profit." "Sir Stephen is my elder brother, and I am Arthur, the second son," said the youth. "In sooth and in sooth!" cried the king at arms, with scornful eyes. "And pray, sir second son, where is the cadency mark which should mark your rank? Dare you to wear your brother's coat without the crescent which should stamp you as his cadet? Away to your lodgings, and come not nigh the prince until the armorer hath placed the true charge upon your shield." As the youth withdrew in confusion, Sir William's keen eye singled out the 5 red roses from amid the overlapping shields and cloud of pennons which faced him. "Ah!" he cried, "there are charges here which are above counterfeit. The roses of Loring and the boar's head of Buttesthorn may stand back in peace, but by my faith they are not to be held back in war. Welcome, Sir Oliver, Sir Nigel. Chandos will be glad to his very heart roots when he sees you. This way, my fair sirs. Your squires are doubtless worthy of the fame of their masters. Down this passage, Sir Oliver. Edricson, ha! One of the old strain of Hampshire Edricsons, I doubt not. And Ford, they are of a South Saxon stock and of good repute. There are Norburys in Cheshire and in Wiltshire, and also, as I have heard, upon the borders. So, my fair sirs, and I shall see that you are shortly admitted." He had finished his professional commentary by flinging open a folding door and ushering the party into a broad hall which was filled with a great number of people who were waiting, like themselves, for an audience. The room was very spacious, lighted on one side by 3 arched and mullioned windows, while opposite was a huge fireplace, in which a pile of faggots was blazing merrily. Many of the company had crowded round the flames, for the weather was bitterly cold, but the 2 knights seated themselves upon a buncal, with their squires standing behind them. Looking down the room, Alleyne marked that both floor and ceiling were of the richest oak, the latter spanned by 12 arching beams, which were adorned at either end by the lilies and the lions of the royal arms. At the further side was a small door, on each side of which stood men at arms. From time to time an elderly man in black, with rounded shoulders and a long white wand in his hand, came softly forth from this inner room and beckoned to one or other of the company, who doffed cap and followed him. The 2 knights were deep in talk when Alleyne became aware of a remarkable individual who was walking round the room in their direction. As he passed each knot of cavaliers, every head turned to look after him, and it was evident, from the bows and respectful salutations on all sides, that the interest which he excited was not merely due to his strange personal appearance. He was tall and straight as a lance, though of great age, for his hair, which curled from under his velvet cap of maintenance, was as white as the new fallen snow. Yet from the swing of his stride and the spring of his step it was clear that he had not yet lost the fire and activity of his youth. His fierce hawk like face was clean shaven, like that of a priest, save for a long thin wisp of white moustache which drooped down half way to his shoulder. That he had been handsome might easily be judged from his high aquiline nose and clear cut chin, but his features had been so distorted by the seams and scars of old wounds, and by the loss of one eye which had been torn from the socket, that there was little left to remind one of the dashing young knight who had been 50 years ago the fairest as well as the boldest of the English chivalry. Yet what knight was there in that hall of St. Andrew's who would not have gladly laid down youth, beauty, and all that he possessed to win the fame of this man? For who could be named with Chandos, the stainless knight, the wise counsellor, the valiant warrior, the hero of Crecy or of Winchelsea, of Poitiers, of Auray, and of as many other battles as there had been years to his life? "Ah, my little heart of gold!" he cried, darting forward suddenly and throwing his arms round Sir Nigel. "I heard that you were here, and have been seeking you." "My fair and dear lord," said the knight, returning the warrior's embrace, "I have indeed come back to you, for where else shall I go that I may learn to be a gentle and hardy knight?" "By my troth," said Chandos with a smile, "it is very fitting that we should be companions, Nigel; for since you have tied up one of your eyes, and I have the mischance to lose one of mine, we have but a pair between us. Ah, Sir Oliver, you were on my blind side of me, and I saw you not. A wise woman hath made prophecy that this blind side will one day be the death of me. We shall go into the prince anon, but in truth he hath much upon his hands, for what with Pedro, and the King of Majorca, and the King of Navarre, who is in no 2 days of the same mind, and the Gascon barons, who are all chaffering for terms like so many hucksters, he hath an uneasy part to play. But how left you the Lady Loring?" "She is well, my fair lord, and sent her service and greetings to you." "I am ever her knight and slave. And your journey, I trust that it was pleasant?" "As heart could wish. We had sight of 2 rover galleys, and even came to some slight bickering with them." "Ever in luck's way, Nigel," quoth Sir John. "We must hear the tale anon. But I deem it best that you should leave your squires and come with me, for howsoever pressed the prince may be, I am very sure that he would be loath to keep 2 old comrades in arms upon the further side of the door. Follow close behind me, and I will forestall old Sir William, though I can scarce promise to roll forth your style and rank as is his wont." So saying, he led the way to the inner chamber, the 2 companions treading close at his heels, and nodding to right and left as they caught sight of familiar faces among the crowd. Chapter 18